Thank you so much for having H2O in New York. So many New Yorkers, bright faces, and so many people from different parts of the world. And I met a few from outside the country. How many of you are here outside the US? Hand there. Where are you from? UK. Welcome, welcome. Um, one of the things I learned from the whole Brexit situation is that the Atlantic Ocean is much closer is shorter than the English Channel, right? Because we actually speak English on this side of Atlantic Ocean. Um, I heard another Israel. Thank you for coming from away. Again, avid H2O users. How many of you have actually used H2O before? Wow, I want to take a picture. Thank you so much. How many of you are hoping to learn a lot about H2O this time? That's awesome. So H2O, the product, H2O, the company, have both evolved quite a bit. And we'll talk about the plans we have. I think the biggest welcome for us was last evening. How many of you watched the thunderstorm and the rain? It was dramatic rain, right? Cut off the humidity, we could enjoy the evening. It was fun. So I think there's a lot of fun scheduled rest of the afternoon, a lot of great events. We also are doing the unconference as Vinod was mentioning. There's a little bit of good hands-on hack sessions, data hack sessions. So hacking data is kind of why we are all here. And data has a singular way of transforming how we think about the world. And I think that's kind of what we are here to talk about today. How many of you are here from other parts of the city, of the states? I caught up with the LexisNexis folks early this morning from Orlando, Florida. Any other Floridans? Tampa, Florida. Awesome. We did an analysis of the RSVPs. There's a big chunk of the population from the area here. We've done annual conferences at the Computer History Museum for the last 2 years in a row, and we were getting flooded with hundreds of people there, and we decided to decentralize, kind of truly go where the users are. So I think our mission is to get this to such a good machine that we can do a dozen of this in 2017, not just 3 or 4 of these. So our goal is to do more. And there is enough content, and that's something, one of the topics you'll hear as the keynote. You'll realize that we are actually trying to build multiple products, and we are a product company, and that's not changing. So we're trying to innovate the core platform in so many ways that it'll be truly fun to see a lot of the collaboration and the community that brought us this far. I want to call out a couple of folks, a few folks who've really done a tremendous amount of work putting this together, especially the organizing team behind. And you have 2 full days of real, we'll push your limits to the point where you're going to have to produce some great work. Likewise, the marketing team at H2O. So without further ado, I want to talk about data. I mean, data is actually datum, right? Datum is Latin for to give. And so there's a lot of giving to be done, both in terms of energy, in terms of direction to the space. And AI is actually one of those things that people will ask, what is your company's AI strategy, right? That's the fundamental piece that we are seeing at a lot of different customers of ours. The question about why, right? I mean, a lot of my talks about setting the stage for why, and the rest of my team, which is behind me, the Stellar team, is going to demonstrate the how and the what, right? So my goal is to set the tone for why. The why is for transformation. We want to bring change, and every entrepreneur's vision is to bring change, and that's kind of what we are using data to bring change. Data science is the ultimate search for truth, and in that search for truth, we have found some amazing tools, but some amazing opportunity for data as well. The whole idea of open source and data coming together is such a phenomenal time in our existence as software people that we can really look for truth in every walk of life. And when I say every walk of life, from a business standpoint, as software is eating all parts of life, you'll see that, so we have a joke that software is eating everything except food, right? So don't forget the lunch that people are setting up. That's the only thing that will be left for us, right? Um, but all the verticals, if you think about the verticals, every vertical has to transform because traditional ways of doing business, the base product that you're selling is going to be commodified. Software follows faster than Moore's law of depreciation, right? Moore's law is a depreciation. So if software is actually faster than that, two people in a garage can build the code that you hold private and so precious to you. So code is a commodity. And as a result, what you're doing today, how you're making today, whatever curve it is on, it's going to go very flat very soon. So all you have is your data, and your data in the defense of your community. Vertical is the new horizontal, right? And that's kind of the crux of where we feel the world is headed towards, is if you can actually truly bring your thinking to bear. In other words, the data you have, if you can use your data to solve your customers' problems, your community's problems, and not just your own community, go beyond it. If your community is connected to other verticals. So if you're an airline company, you could be working on a real estate problem because of how you know flights are flying between different cities. So think of your data as not just siloed in your vertical. You think of it as a truly horizontal product. Data like water will flow across different planes. And so if you can actually connect data products from your domain to other domains, that's where you see value. So data products is kind of where the real rubber meets the road. So H2O as a company has learned how to build a little bit of community thanks to your love. But I think what we are looking to do now is give you platforms to build data products and data ecosystems. I think that's kind of where the next bend in our evolution is. That's where the bend in the river for our customers is as well, is how to build data ecosystems and trusting alliances in data. And I think that's kind of what you'll see is a big change in theme. Data is the only vertical we are all in. And there is two four-letter words that I'm really popular saying. One is, of course, I'm happy to trade data and cash and data, which is very important, right? But I think love is a very powerful part of it. And love is what you want to get from your customers. You want to have almost a spontaneous reaction to your work. And one of the things H2O experienced, which is quite transforming to us as a company, is most of stuff we've done, almost 80% or even 90% of stuff we've done, had immediate reaction from the audience, from the customers, from the users. And I think that's something that we've been fortunate to have, and we continue to treat that as a responsibility to keep that kind of trust from the community. But building beautiful data products is a new transformation to H2O. And we would not use beauty in sense and data in one line 4 years ago. But today we have built a team. We can credibly say that we are going to bring true visual intelligence to the space. And I think beautiful transformation, beautiful AI, it actually assumes that there's a human in the AI. I'll drop a little bit of that in my talk, but really you'll find that there's the rest of the day, a couple of talks will hit on that. Tony Shu and his team, Prithvi, Lee Wilkinson. We've had some really real powerhouses of visual interpretation. Jeff Hall, Mika Stubbs. We'll talk about that as well. Some of my demos will talk to that. But building beautiful data products, getting your user to interact with your data product. So you create new data. And that's the crux of where the cycle starts. Got to shift focus from the internal to the external. And the value has to shift from just your product to the ecosystem. And that's true to our own transformation. H2O is going through building vertical ecosystems. And that's kind of one of the things that we'll talk about. We have always built horizontal ecosystems. Sparkling Water is a great example of that, where we embraced other people's work, other open source work, and combined to get best-of-breed open source to our customers and our community. I think what you're going to see is how we now build vertical ecosystems. So some of the folks in the audience who I met earlier are here to find partnerships with us. We are looking for them, so we want to build them. So let's nurture that whole ecosystem. Now, we talked about software eating the world. Well, AI is eating software, right? So the true end of code as we know it, as people say, is right around the corner. And it's, when I say right around the corner, 2022, right? It's not really far off before AI is going to dominate most all of software. Even today, most rule-based applications are being rebuilt with AI engines, with pattern recognition-based applications. So what was truly a data science movement has flipped over to be pop science, real software engineering movement, right? So what we are seeing as AI today is true software engineers being part of the whole revolution. I think that will transform much faster because software, there's a saying I used to say or hear sometimes, where there's two ways to change the world. Either try to be Deepak Chopra or try and be a software engineer, right? And software does touch as many lives, right? So that's the fastest way to touch a lot of lives, other than, of course, Pokemon Go, which is probably also software, right? So the vertical ecosystem for H2O, again, a crayon diagram, is we built 6,000 plus companies have used H2O now. 60,000 data scientists use it on a weekly basis, of which 1,100 of them have used it before 11 o'clock today, right? Which is a fun statistics for us to hear. And a few of those open source users do use us, do pay us. They're our customers as well as our community. But as we start building them, some of those customers started doing larger interactions with our team, sometimes in form of a little bit of services, but trying to truly extract the product into a software engineering engine, plugging it into their software. And that's led us to now discover some really interesting verticals. We're looking at building some verticals in CFO, for CFO.ai for CFOs, with help of another large auditing house. We're looking to build AML-based anti-money laundering verticals with the help of real banks, their partnerships, their data, whoever has data and analysis. But one thing that's close to our heart is cancer. We have now started building open data ecosystems for cancer, looking at imaging, pattern recognition in images and ultrasound. That's where some of our other innovations that we're looking at from deep water, from the deep learning side, are going to be applied. And this is 100% open source vertical. This is the first true community-oriented vertical in cancer. And that opens up a whole new ecosystem on the top for us, especially if you look at ultrasounds are different than the way you look at ultrasounds for breast cancer is different from the way you look at it for pancreatic cancer. And so that opens up a whole slew of how do you monetize that in the end as IoT. So there's a whole audacious plan of one at a time opening up into the verticals and really partnering with the vertical ecosystem. I think the beauty about where we are is just getting started. There is a data alliances that need to be built, truly work with the new stars of the world, Experience of the world, Equifaxes of the world, and build real data verticals that we can then plug in back into the H2O community, into the Steam products. And so you can actually add data to your existing data. So I think that's kind of the true vision that we have of enabling not just algorithms, but data, right, into your own data. So connecting different data sets is kind of going to be the real true road ahead for us. All of this delivered through cloud and eventually through IoT. That's the real vision that we have for the next 10 years. And we're working at it one quarter at a time, right, as we are startups. But the audacious plan is truly slowly emerging in amidst us. With the help of our customers, with the help of our own community, and with the help of our own set of backers. How do we incentivize team sport? None of this is possible without the amazing team behind me, right? And that team includes my customers, my community, some of my earliest customers. I have in the audience Eric from Vendavo, right, one of our first pricing engine customer. I've actually met, I see Mikal as well. Mikal Kurkai was also one of my first customers in the same team, but now some of them have joined us and are building product within our company. But I think the customers and the whole ecosystem of people around us have truly incentivized us. The score really takes care of itself. For data, it's really a team sport, right? And I'm going to set the tone for why we're doing the next 3 products that we're working on. And you cannot build any of these products without actually connecting the dots between the domain, the data, the apps, right? And then using algorithms and design to truly bring your data as a sport. Because without applications, you cannot connect the feedback loops. And connecting those feedback loops are so critical for the applications. And the first platform for data products that we are looking at is Steam. And the team's really busy trying to build several interesting pieces into Steam, first of which will be just model management. How do I store models? Some of our customers and community have done that themselves. How many of you have tried to persist H2O models and then come up with your own ways to store them, pickle them, reuse them? I see some nods. We'll have Allison and the team from HCA speak about it tomorrow, I suppose. But that's actually the crux of the matter. The database for AI, all these models, how they're stored, how they're governed, how they're scored, how you plug it into applications. So you can get a REST endpoint that speaks to the true data that's flowing through the system. That's the heart of the matter for Steam. Of course, comparison, selection. I mean, H2O is already good at finding model selection. How do you plug that into production? That's where the question for Steam arises. And data products need new tools. You have a lot more dependencies. Now you plug data into your product. As a result, into your logic of the product. Code dependencies are much more easier to debug than data dependencies. Because as the world changes, your entire model pipeline has to be rebuilt. If you don't have good model pipelines, and the ones that you cannot see, those are the ones that really cause most issues for you. This is the early days of the internet, where you had 2 Cisco switches, you plugged 2 wires. Now you have hundreds of switches. That's what's going to happen very soon, and your data center is going to be clogged with wires. That's the model ML pipeline jungle that you're going to create for yourself. And debugging and unraveling them are some of the problems the earliest H2O users have already hit. And we are trying to create tool chain to debug those visually as well as through an IDE. Right? And I think that's the heart of the road ahead for building stuff. How do you trace through these models? How do you even keep models in check? For if models are intelligent beings, you only can keep them in check with other models. Right? So then testing your models becomes really creating an ecosystem of models around them, both the upper bound accuracy, lower bound accuracy. So all of those pieces are the stuff that our team is now trying to focus. They'll give you a tool chain so you can debug them. The second product we're looking at is deep water. And folks will talk about that today, later today, Arno and Fabrizio. We have a phenomenal team. We want to get best-in-class open source deep learning. And that deep learning is obviously a framework. It's not one algorithm. And so all of the top frameworks that are out there, including TensorFlow, Caffe, MXNet, and the ease of use from H2O, all of them combined in a way that you can actually use it very easily, in a way you can deploy the best-in-class, but then morph it into something that's simple, where we can delete the stuff from other frameworks that you're not using. The RNN and LSTM from some of these frameworks is useful for you as an NLP user, while for others, CNN is all they need for the imaging. So I think having best-in-class deep learning is truly what a year from now we'll look back and say, this is something we've really preserved for the open source. Because I think the wars for algorithms are all headed into the deep learning, into deep water in some sense, right? So that's a phase. Our team will talk about it as well. It's another very big future for us. I think there's Fabrizio in the audience somewhere. He joined us recently, or he joins us today, I suppose. And then we have Arno on the other side. So we'll have a MXNet. I don't know if KK is here yet, but we have most of the folks on these different projects already collaborating inside H2O. So we'll have a lot of fun doing that. NVIDIA and Intel have both committed to resources to help us build them on GPUs. So, visual intelligence is we were talking about this earlier, that storytelling is such a human endeavor that if you cannot understand how the model is working and trade off between accuracy as well as interpretability. I mean, sometimes interpretability dominates over accuracy. And I think that's kind of the hard problem that Tony and his team are really struggling, and will come to an answer on that one, which will be a fun one because deep learning will obviously use it. It's a black box model. How do you convert a black box model to a gray box model where I can understand parts of it? How do I take the best out of that and probably bring back GLM on top of it so I can really understand what's happening? But there's lots of real hard problems behind this, and interpretation becomes far more valuable than accuracy at times. And I think that's the part we have started. You'll see R2D3, the making of R2D3 at some point during this conference, on how the thought process behind how to truly tell a story. I think every business needs this. Today's business needs this, and the future also needs this, and here's why. There's several distinctive futures for AI. One of them has the humans in it, and the others do not, right? So when the bots don't need visual interpretation. It's the humans that need visual interpretations. And for that, we do need truly immersive intelligence. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're really investing in this, is that without visual interpretation, we are no longer as important to debugging the AI paths road ahead. And I think that's the key piece. It's really something that's going to make or break for the environment here. And I think AI is truly powerful. Some of the jokes we have in our water cooler are interesting. AI has been with us for hundreds of years, and people have been predicting the future of AI for so many years. Even in the last 20 years, I've seen AI take off a couple of times, false starts. And the joke we have is that AI will be with us in 100 years. And maybe the only thing left in 100 years, if we do not actually bring true human understanding alongside AI. And AI, on one hand, does make us be more human because it takes away most of the menial work. But I think if we cannot debug it just as well as a toy, as a child debugs the toys, we'll still be at a loss in terms of intelligence. AI has a capacity to increase the world's intelligence by 100x without having a huge bio footprint. It's a platform for data. Many of you have already used it, sparkling water. How many of you have used sparkling water? There's a few hands here, few hands there. One-fourth of our downloads today are sparkling water, which is pretty drastic, pretty large, actually. And people use us both in the cloud, alongside Databricks cloud, alongside IBM's, as well as in Amazon, on-prem. There are two distinctive architectures, one that's streaming and one that is bulk. So both cases, we have seen customers use us in different forms. And Spark provides what we haven't done yet, if you will, in terms of ETL. We don't do ENT, right? We do definitely do the intelligence part, the modeling part. There's clearly design patterns for smarter applications. Again, we are seeing lots of different patterns, including, and some I have not even mentioned here, like the closure one, right? Some of our customers have Storm, they have Node.js, React.js, so lots of different interactions. But I think the real key piece is to make sure we have the loop. The data product needs to be exposed to the end user to get user interaction. And data products are really fun, right? They actually allow you to rebuild your applications in the cloud one more time. So connecting the agenda of your company's cloud agenda with AI is something that is happening. It's happening both from the push from Google and Microsoft, but also from general common sense, where if you rebuild a monolithic app today, you're going to put it in the cloud for most part. And I think this microservice mindset is kind of like really bringing AI into a lot of different applications. Data is the new clay, and towards that, we are putting together a phenomenal data prep engine in form of data.table. So you'll have a talk later today from Matt Dowell. I think he's somewhere in the audience, and where he will demonstrate 10 billion row joins, like one of the world's fastest, largest distributed joins using radix sort. And again, open source. And I think one of the things you'll see is that we're slowly beginning to help the data prep side as well, but it's not something that's right there today. It's headed towards production use towards the end of the year. But that's one part of it. The second part of it is building real alliances in data products. Data alliances, working with real data products, so we can then plug them through Steam into your environment. So APIs, simplest example is a weather API. We could pass through a weather API into your application through Steam. And then now, as a retail user, you can start adding weather to your existing data set. There's lots of little data products that can be pickled up front in deep learning and be available in the Steam default. So you can actually start using those data products out of the box and start connecting them into your applications. I think the reality is to truly exemplify domain experiences and make them, productize them. I've heard this saying several times, startups are all team sports. I'm here because of a phenomenal team behind me. And some of them, or most of them, are listed on the site as well. I'll probably pull them up one at a time if they're in the audience here. But we've been growing rapidly. We're a team now of roughly 70 people, still dominated more than 60, 65% of them are still engineering. And culture is truly your co-founder. And in my team, I find the partnerships that I've been building. Every one of the team, founding is not the one moment when you sign that in paper. Every moment is a founding moment for us. Every one of them who joined us has this huge footprint and fingerprints on the company. My goal for this company is to build a lot of really true good leaders. But let me bring up one interesting piece about the company. We do have three, and in my small career, I've countable number of times, number of folks I've worked with African Americans in technology. And Silicon Valley has a lot of hypocrisy around it. And this is something we're going to call straight on. We do have about half, roughly heading towards half of the company is going to be women in real leadership positions as well. And it's not just numbers, we actually have equitable pay as well. I think some of the changes we want to see, you want to make happen in your own journey. And that's something we have really taken as a responsibility for our own company. Why make one CEO when you make 10 is the question we ask in the company. And the way to do that is actually expose most of the data within the company to almost everybody within the company. And almost to my board is one of the most educated board, and they could walk into any big data company and truly take them to task. And to a large part, most of my engineers are like that. Most of my sales team is like that. Our marketing team has been doing that. My GA team, even my admin team, they've all been part of the company we're building. I think we're going to build such an amazing set of leaders within the company that will be the H2O makers will create a new revolution. So one Sunday, I woke up with a much more interesting view of what can be done. And that's, how can I build 10 great women CEOs in Silicon Valley? And I think that's also one of the things that we're really pushing. A lot of our leaders are being formed. Like Amy, when she joined me, she was the first job here, right? Sort of and she's from New York. And I said, I'm going to move you from here, and she did move, I think over the weekend, thanks to, and they've been growing rapidly. Several of our customers will tell you how much they have touched their lives. I think we have another, like ADP, like one of the questions they had was, can I get some more time from AB Bank, right? But that's just one of many people who have poured their hearts into this company. Josephine and Kerry, who's of course New York, and we just have Beth who joined us. We have several real strong leaders being formed as part of our journey. And I think startups are not just technology companies or technology beings. We owe it to ourselves to actually being the emotional energy behind the creation that we're doing. And change will come in spades once we have leaders on the top. One of the change I used to talk about is that every generation needs to fight its own revolution. And of course, the emperor of all melodies is this guy we call Cancer or Merovingian from the Matrix world. The thing I think I was presenting this slide to one of my colleagues at the time, convincing him to join us, Mike Bukowski. And the slide was presented in a very tilted fashion. So you see, there's love in revolution. Love powers most revolutions. One of the things, the most recent June 6th finding invalidated 40,000 fMRIs that were done for the last 15 years because of a small software bug, which means about 15 years of research is pretty much up for question. And that happens oftentimes. You find bugs, you fix them, but you don't have the time to run all those experiments again. And the way to do that is have open source be the guiding path. With enough ice, all bugs are shallow. And that's the fundamental theme behind open source and open data. And I think that's kind of what we really want to bring change. If you want to bring change as a third bottom line for the company, that would be trying to really enter the Wonderland. And Alice in Wonderland is a fundamentally new way of thinking of the world, where everything is possible. With AI, a lot of things are possible. With open source, a lot of things can be bring to solution. So we're trying to build an open source data ecosystem for cancer, truly in a vertical fashion. And we started one step at a time. We're now bringing imaging, focused on imaging and ultrasound. And we're working with several hospitals, Stanford Hospital. We should work with our customers as well. We started working with NHS. We started working with Adyar Cancer Institute in India, really far and wide, because ultrasound is actually very inexpensive to do. It's actually non-invasive. And there's lots of good data and bad data, right? So you can actually look at both pancreatic cancer and the simplest normal gastric trouble endoscopy. So all of these are all data sets, and they become deep learning problems, right? Once you start applying deep learning problems and bringing in biomarkers, we will bring change to this world, steadily, one step at a time. And we won't do it without your help. We need your help. And your help is going to be coming in the form of data science, in the form of engineers, in the form of truly building products with us, alongside us in the community. It's going to be open source, so we will try and get as much of radiologists and oncologists and writers and the society involved. I think this is a true way of unlocking a lot of the clutter we see in healthcare today. And finally, we're going to consumerize the data, right? Data collection, if you consumerize it, you can actually get enough big data behind you to rally behind this call. I think this really a clarion call for creating an open source health diagnostic systems, where if you think about how we've really focused on trying to make sure our laptop software is tested more than the software that does a cardiogram, or a software that's looking at our fMRI, a software that's looking at our cancer diagnostics. The false positive rate in breast cancer is 58%. Right? So and the false positive rate in fMRI was 70%. That was what invalidated that paper. So these are things that cannot be left to be solved by commercial interests themselves. These need to be really attacked with smart people like us, where this hardware we have, this body we have, is going to last for just less than a century. And why should I work on a digital twin for a turbine, which can be fixed easily, versus working on a digital twin for our own human heart? I think these are the things that really are going to inspire us to build the next generation of open source. And it's not just much like how SAS, our sibling in 40 years ago, started with the base statistical software and verticalized into all these ecosystems. We're going to do that in open source and take a very open approach and bring a lot of different customers, community, and the rest of the world to bear. It's the power law of networks. Once we start doing one network, the other networks will emerge. And if you're sitting in a circle, as each of you are on a circle here, there's possibilities for infinite ideas, not just one idea. And I think we look forward to your feedback so we can bring change. One thing we will never forget is that we are still day zero. We're still very little. And there's some fundamental advantage of being that little being. You can build ecosystems. You can partner, raise a forest, not just a tree, right? And I think that's what keeps us really awake. That's what keeps us come back to work every day and change the world one step at a time. Time still is the only non-renewable resource. And this one says the keynote is over time. So it's about time I have to conclude. And the key piece I was going to bring up is that people are such an important part of this transformation. Algo plus data is business, but algo plus data plus people bring change. And that change is coming in the form of business transformation. We put together a couple of units for our customers. And the world really needs more of these, more of the dreamers. Because I think technology is actually much more easier to build these days than ever before. And I think the rise of the business technologists is everywhere. H2O as a movement has matured. It's now bringing AI to business. It's not just data science. It's the combination of data science, software engineering, the data engineering, but also the storytelling aspect of it. And that's not been possible without your help, without the community that has grown from just mere tens of people who are playing with our product to thousands of them who are using it now. And many of them have paid us, some of them have used us and given us feedback. Feedback is, in the end, more valuable than even cash. We are hiring those right kind of crazy people who are willing to join us. Please send us your notes, those original people who dare to change the status quo. But thank you so much for being part of this journey. And we really are looking to bring change. And